A history of the Hajj. Muslim pilgrimages to Mecca are intended to carry out certain religious rites as prescribed by Prophet Muhammad, may God's mercy and blessing be upon him, according to the Islamic method. First ordained by God, Hajj and its rites were built by Abraham along with his son Ishmael on Mecca as part of the entrustment by God to Abraham of the Kaaba, the house of God. In the years following the building of the Kaaba, Abraham's son continued this practice after his father's death. Despite this, the Hajj rites gradually changed in form and goal over time. The Kaaba lost its purity as idolatry spread throughout Arabia. The Kaaba was eventually surrounded by over 360 idols. In the Hajj itself, the sacred precincts of the Kaaba were filled with a circus-like atmosphere. As part of the Hajj event, pilgrims gathered to sing and drink, to commit adultery, and to commit other immoral acts. Poetry competitions were also held. It was also common for tribe chiefs to stage generosity competitions, in which they served pilgrims with huge cauldrons to become well known for their generosity. Among the things that he established were rites that were completely distorted by the pagans, and the house that he had made pure for God's worship alone had been completely desecrated. The Prophet Muhammad spread the message of monotheism for 23 years and established God's law throughout the land, the same message Abraham, Moses, and all the other prophets brought. Additionally, the Prophet restored all the Hajj rites that Abraham established when he was granted God's permission, including the removal of all the Kaaba's impurities. A number of specific injunctions are included in the Quran as a means of eradicating all kinds of false rites that were prevalent during pre-Islamic times. However, the slaughtering of the animals for this purpose was to be done for God's pleasure, not for fame or praise, so the poor pilgrims' food was still encouraged as it was before Abraham's time. They were clearly informed by God not to spatter blood on the walls of the Kaaba or hang their flesh on altars, as this is a deplorable practice. The Prophet, may God's love and blessings be upon him, also put an end to the tradition of circumambulating the Kaaba while naked, and the justification offered by the pagans for this ritual was vehemently refuted in God's question. Another behavior forbidden by the Quran was leaving for Hajj without bringing any provisions for the journey. Some persons who considered themselves righteous and wholly dependent on God would trek to do the Hajj while begging for food in the pre-Islamic era. This resulted in the abolition of all pre-Islamic customs that were founded on ignorance and the restoration of Hajj as a symbol of piety, fear of God, cleanliness, simplicity, and austerity.